All right, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Journeys with Rebecca, and we are here with my absolutely fabulous guest, Solaris BlueRaven. And we have been talking about AI for the first hour. I think we're going to continue on with a little bit more. We've got some questions, and we've got just a full house here tonight. So welcome back. And Solaris, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Wonderful, Rebecca. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh man, I will tell you the chat room, is just loving, all the information that you're sharing. And just as we went to break, another question came in. I'm going to lead with this question, and then we've got some other things that we're going to kind of go into. This is from John Teeter was here. I've been drawn to the constellation of Orion since I was a kid. I might be a starseed from Orion. Has Solaris felt drawn to a particular star or constellation in the night sky?
Oh, well, let's see here. Well, I do have a connection to Sirius A, Sirius B, Andromeda, Pleiades, I think I said Sirius and Arcturian energies. So, and beyond the galactic center. So those are the ones that correlate with me. But Orion is very strong, and I'm not surprised that that particular person has a connection with Orion because there's a lot going on with that one right now. So, yeah, very interesting. But yeah, I do. And also with my initiations, and this goes for anybody, when you receive initiations, you're dealing with universal, celestial energies. There's a lot of us who've gone through initiation. It's like a mystery school teaching initiation. So you're dealing with opening up a stargate and corridor to connect with your, what we call the multidimensional design work to your celestial heritage. So when you activate through frequency a certain aspect of your multidimensional design through the DNA, an aspect of that, what we call alien hybrid or off-world hybrid, would integrate onto you or into you. So that is why we have these connections to our quote-unquote extraterrestrials or off-world species, as I like to call them. So I do know that through my initiations I did get Arcturian energies to send in and a lot of other things. That was prior to my the induction that happened to me in 2004.
Wow. And you know, I'm before I forget, and I'm always remiss in this, so I'm going to remind everyone that, first of all, thank you all for placing your questions in all caps. And one of the things that I did talk about in the opening, when I was talking about Solaris, if you will give us, the websites to where people can purchase your books and your DVDs and all of that, so that we can also post it in the chat room for those that, are watching the chat as well.
Okay. The website is Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. That's that's my website in its own, and also the DVD documentaries for sale over there. If you mention Rebecca's show, I'll give you half off on the documentary, just so y'all know.
Ooh.
Yeah. And also my books are available on Amazon.com. I have a new book called 1 Million Miles Till Midnight, which is just out, not too long ago, and I encourage people to pick up a copy. It's a great read, and I get a lot of good feedback from it, so. There you go.
Well, there you go. I tell you what, I'm going to have to get that book, and then I'm going to bring
Sending
it
back to you.
Yeah,
give me your address. I'll send you my book.
Okay. Well, we're going to have you back on then to talk about the book now.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, let's do that. All right. We're going to do that.
Happy to.
Oh, this is awesome. Listen, Tobias, as you well know, he's here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
He sits second chair in here for the reason that sometimes I'm not able to do the show. So he's going to be filling in. And also Tobias and I, do a lot of, co-hosting with each other on some of the shows. I just have Q&A, where we just have a particular topic and we talk about it, and then the audience asks questions. So it's kind of a freebie, and so really enjoy it. But he asked if you could talk about what broke you free from the AI. And he asked me, cause he missed the first part of it. And I said, well, I think you had talked about it a little bit. He wants you to get into a little bit more information. He said, because he said it is interesting because when I have contact from some of my higher profile targeted individual, the AI warns me, threatens me, and he would like to know a little bit more about how you broke free of that. And he also said that he had been told that America was weaponized in or around 2012 or 2014, and it is how much political bullying is happening here. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that he has, and he would like for maybe to address those if you could.
Hey, yeah, hi Tobias. And well, breaking free is very, very difficult to do once you get interfaced with the technology the way I've been. Unfortunately, I was pulled in very, very deep on a very deep level with the technology. I didn't realize how far they were going with me until later on. And then afterwards, when I started talking to people like Preston Nichols and some other people who were suggesting that it was a sci-fi program, I realized how integrated the technology was starting to become. It was starting to blend in, and that was becoming very concerning to me. I will tell you that I was never able to break free of the signals. The signals integrated I would say they integrated 100%, but they have overlaid a lot of things in me. I will say that taking my power back was very easy because I'm very stubborn, and I already had done the spiritual work. When I say that, I mean teaching DNA activation, healing, ascension work. They hit me in my prime when I was adult. I was a very, very confident adult, very expanded in consciousness, very hardcore martial artist where you don't put up with anybody. I don't care where they're coming from. You know, it doesn't matter what sector in the universe. So that helped me along the way to gain strength, to be more and more, indoctrinated into my own soul, spirit, consciousness, and also affirmations. I had to rewrite the programs for me. So whenever they would try to negate something or interfere with me, I would literally rewrite the program with affirmations. Also, writing my books was a way to express what had happened, communicate the truth, and also do a little bit of healing through that because I had to communicate this data to the world. I had to communicate it not only for myself, but in case anybody else was to come across something like this or similar, they would at least have a benchmark. They would have a time capsule out there saying, well, this woman went through something like this. You know, it's very important that we don't shove stuff under the carpet, and that's one of the reasons. So breaking free from the AI, you first of all have to check to see if you have implants. You have to check if they are physical or if they're signals. The physical implants can be removed. I've heard a lot of, you can talk to Steve Colburn. He's one of my friends, and he's done a lot of good assessments on implant analysis scans. But once you have those physically removed, I've heard stories that people go through depression and other things like that. So it's not necessarily a good thing. Also, now when you're dealing with the signals and the frequencies and the heterodyning, that's a different animal. What you have to do is keep transcending on a higher frequency. And the way to do that is to break the barrier between the frequency that they're running interference with and what you're emanating to be compatible with it. In other words, you have to transcend the vibration of your own four-body system. So hopefully that explains a little bit of that to you. But breaking free is very difficult. The targeted individuals, I hate calling them that because I think there's more to it than being targeted. Yeah, you might piss somebody off in government or covert intel and they might go after you, but no. These people are getting templates, they're taking templates of the hosts or the targets. They're running test programs on them. Usually, remember the Jade Helm that was out a couple of years ago, mastering the human domain was their motto. That's what it's about. It's not about artificial intelligence and little warfare, cyber warfare on the internet and breaking down people's websites. This is about interfacing, brain hacking, remotely brain hacking, inserting screen memories, inserting all sorts of programs and propaganda to control, manipulate a target, and if they resist, take them down. That is what the Jade Helm objective was really about. And that is what this artificial intelligence program in the dark web, and I say the dark web, but the dark science departments, black science departments is about as well. So hopefully that answers a little bit.
That was really great. I think that gives him a lot of information that he can sit back with and digest.
Yeah. I will say, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Rebecca. You and I we both talk so much, but I will say if something's threatening him, if you get in your interface of something that's bullying you or telling you not to do this and not to do that, tell it to shut up. You have domain over your body. You claim that over yourself. Do not tolerate it. Do not put up with it. You are the one who has the power, not it. And I want you to remember that. That goes for anybody who's hearing anything trying to control them or tell them. You have your higher self, oversoul, superconscious. You don't need a secretary. You don't need a middleman. And if you think you do, no, you don't. It's you and source. You merged with the full light universe. Don't take these little entities running around trying to tell you what to do. And sometimes they take on the form of this artificial intelligence. That's why I mention it. I had somebody who contacted me who was a Montauk cloned. He was a cloned Montauk boy. He would call me up and he would tell me, the voices are telling me, the voices are telling me. I'd say, stop listening to them. I would stop listening. Okay. That's what you have to do. Unfortunately, I want to say turn a deaf ear because sometimes you do, even if they're broadcasting at you. But what the objective to this is to create a bounce back to that. We don't have to hear or listen to their BS anymore. And there are divisions that are deploying these insidious projects to torture people 24 hours a day, make them hear and listen, and to all sorts of obnoxious things and interconnect them onto projects for control, manipulation, and eventually pushing a target to such a level they'll call them a threat, or they'll try to push them into something where they're becoming more aggressive when they're actually quite nice people. We all have our boundaries. We all have a breaking point to a point where how much bullying should we put up with? How much is too much, right? How much, how close is too close, and what is no-touch torture? You get so close to somebody's electromagnetic field, you puncture a hole in their field, you interface artificial intelligence onto their brainwave activity. You telling me that's not a war crime? Of course it is. And this is one of the reasons we stand up as star people, because in the cosmic design, that's not appropriate behavior with technology.
No, it's not. And, and one of the things that my guys they've talked to me since I was a kid, didn't even know what the word meant about being sovereign. Mm-hmm. And we are each individually sovereign beings. And that means standing in your own truth, in your own power, and you can't be shaken out of it. You can't be bullied out of it. You can't be pushed out of it. You just have to stand in your own power. That is what the authentic self-expression is about, is learning who you really are, what your frequencies are, what your harmonics are within you, and learning how to utilize them, to access them, and it's not about standing up there and saying you're invincible, but it is about standing and saying, this is where I draw my line, right here, right now.
Right. So. Draw your boundaries. Yeah. I always say be a pillar of light. You are the pillar of light that when you're that pillar of light, when you're really anchored as a pillar of light, you dispel a lot of negativity. I don't care if they're inserting an assault weapon inside your body with an exterior signal. You can overcome an awful lot. You're an invincible, immortal being, and don't forget that, because that's one of the things they try to get people to forget is, they want to break you down on a psychological level so that they can recreate you as their version of what they want you to be. So, and I see this with purple fields again. So to survive, we don't confront, because then we're taken down. Well, I don't confront anybody, but I do counterattack. If people are trying to take me down, I'm certainly going to address it, and I'm going to counter them. And I counter them through diplomacy, through my books, through my lectures, through my presentations, through my radio shows, and through contacting a certain group of people in the covert intel and also in DC. So that's how I deal with these people. But also there is the side to us that is a psychic, how would you say it? We have the right to defend ourselves on the astral plane, on a multidimensional space. It's like the neutral zone. Is that what they call it in Star Trek, where you cross over? If they invade your personal electromagnetic field in space, you have every right to do whatever it takes to destroy the signal or take it down, in my opinion. That's just me. Okay. I'm a firm believer in that there are no free shots. You are not to be victimized by these programs, and that's what's happening here. We are seeing a lot of people getting victimized, which is one of the reasons I'm trying to get this stuff out there. You're seeing a lot of people wanting the UFO disclosure. I want disclosure on the covert technologies disclosure that's causing harm to people here, that's scrambling their brainwaves, that's interfacing them with technology they don't need to be interfaced with for control manipulation. That's what I want the disclosure about. I don't care about UFOs. We are the UFOs. What do we care about that? I mean, that's just me, okay? But I'm just going
No. Yeah, it's a valid point, Solaris. That's a valid point, dear. Really, it is. And then so here's another one. John Tidor, was Jade Helm merely a data gathering operation for AI, or was it intended to go live via a false flag, or both?
Well, it definitely was designed to create, how would I say, a distraction to some degree. When you hear about what the Jade Helm was about, they were doing all these little drills, and it was a psychological way to prepare people for what was happening here, what was coming to the United States of America on that level. When you started seeing the drills of the people being extracted in different locations across the map. If you look at the terrorism across the board here right now, obviously we're being prepared for an invasion to some degree, or something where we can have issues like that. But that's the mask, okay? What they're really working on is mastering the human domain is about mastering the entire bioelectromagnetic field of the target. Your brainwave activity, your thoughts, your psyche, influencing you. It's mind control 101. And that is really what Jade Helm was about. That's the covert Jade Helm. That's the one that's about the brain hacking. And that's the one they've been deploying, by the way. And even though you don't realize it, and some of you may not be impacted, I can tell you that they've ramped up a lot of harassment programs. I've had people contact myself over, I don't know how many months, about certain things that have happened to them, where they've been targeted. And it's not just about being targeted individuals. Sometimes they just get what we call, beta checked. It's like a beta test. They just get tested, see if they hear, see if they listen, see if they respond. Okay, we're moving on. This is going on. So people are getting triangulated in their homes. They hear something. They get harassed by it for maybe a week or two, and then they leave. It goes away. That's a beta test. Be very aware of that. And if it happens to you, mark it down and log it, and then we'll bring it over to DC and say, look, heads up. So it's time to address this stuff. I don't want to see people torn down on an energetic scale. I really don't. I think it's really important that we talk about a lot of this stuff and really start putting it out there.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is to not make it seem like it's so strange and so unusual, because it's not. It's just not strange. It's not unusual, because if you really go back into, the unknown history of all of this, we are so much more than what, they've regurgitated to us. And that's exactly that's what we do when we go to school.
Right.
We don't really learn anything. We learn how to memorize, and we regurgitate those facts or that information. And we've come to find out, you have to say, though, there's a lot of brave people out there that are coming up with the information that, hey, your history isn't exactly what you thought it was. And it's becoming more and more and more prevalent. And the more people start really looking at this and listening and watching and paying attention to all the things that are actually more truthful than what we've been told, this is what helps them too, is to break free from the chains, the matrix, the construct, as I call it. It helps them to become stronger from within. And that's
absolutely
what we have to do.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah, and that's what the beauty of the matrix of the, I call it the matrix of the internet. It's the virtual matrix, because we're out here and a lot of this data is being, just sent through the airwaves and also sent around the world through the virtual internet to communicate, hey, you live in a false matrix here. Even though they're trying to do damage control, obviously, and censor everything, we're still up there and we're out there talking about this stuff that literally is about false matrices and how we've been lied to for decades and decades and centuries after centuries. And the ancient artifacts and all these wonderful things that are out there have been obfuscated or taken away or sold in the black market to the highest bidder or the 1%ers who have access to ancient artifacts that they don't even have a resonance with. It's interesting. I was just interviewed somebody not too long ago about the ancient pyramids, and we were talking about how things get taken away and sent to covert divisions, and nobody sees these objects, yet they're all connected to our celestial heritage, for example. So once again, everything has been hidden to us, but the keys and the codes are within your DNA, your cellular memory, cellular consciousness, your multidimensional design work, and that's why I always encourage people to follow spirit, do the spiritual work, be multidimensional, don't be afraid of the mystical world or the world of cults. Cult is a hidden world. It's not an evil world. It's energy. It's how you use the energy. It's always about that. So whatever people try to do, there are a lot of people out there who want to hijack symbols. They're hijacking all kinds of symbols and using them for their own warfare programs. Don't be programmed by that. Just allow everything to transcend accordingly. And I've always taken symbols and transcended the vibration, by the way, just for myself. If people want to throw a symbol at me or something, I just transcend the frequency to the cosmic design.
Oh, absolutely. Because, these symbols that they've now kind of, villainized, right? They really were sacred symbols in ancient times, and they had very positive vibrations.
Right.
But if you believe something is negative, it's going to work that way for you.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
if you know the truth, then just like you said, you can transcend it. And that's a really good thing to share with people, Solaris. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
You're welcome. And I will say too, when I was first interfaced with that technology, I was very loving with it. I was very loving with them. I was unconditionally loving, sending love, light, healing, ascension, being very accepting, neutral, positive, not polarizing in a negative fashion at all. But I have to tell you, the more light I sent, the worse they got. So once again, you have to pay attention to that too on the timeline, because sometimes we can send all the love in the world, and I'll tell you what, boy, they just eat it up, and then they're still there, and they're, what I see is that we transcend to the spy bird level of consciousness to a point where we're overseeing it. It's almost as if there's a glass barrier between us and them. And we just keep ascending up through the multiverse, and they just they basically implode. And when I say they, I mean these entities they don't want to ascend. They don't want to be anything productive. They just, if that's the way they roll, fine, so be it. But we can't be part of that. We can't be pulled down into this false matrix. It's non-productive. It's not part of our cosmic design.
So let's take a look at all these supposed random acts of violence that are going on across the globe. Now, this is besides the actual terrorists. I'm just talking about people having fights in malls, people beating up restaurant owners because their meal wasn't good enough for them. Just things like that. All of a sudden just pulling somebody over because they have road rage, and they're they take somebody and rip them out of their car and beat them up. I was listening to you when you were talking about how people can be bombarded with the voices or whatever it is that's going on. Of course, we don't hear about that. We don't hear what's going on with those people. We don't know them personally, these people that make these news stories, right? We don't know. Has something happened to them? Would you suspect I know that you watch some of these anomalies across the globe. Would you suspect that some of this violence, that this nonsensical violence and none of it's actually sensible. I shouldn't have said that. But this just outburst for, that you would not normally see is just happening everywhere. Would you attribute that, or could you attribute that to some of this stuff that's we've been talking about tonight?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do with manufactured radio waves, manufactured frequencies and transmissions that are non-productive, that are literally hijacking the energies of ascension. People look at CERN, for example. CERN is a very interesting area, and it can be used for good, but the frequencies and the transmissions, what they're really doing is trying to match the harmonics of the ascension frequencies descending onto this world. And I don't care how people want to see it, but I see it that way completely. To a point where they're trying to run interference, if you ask me. The natural spiking that's going on right now, or unnatural, shall we say, that's going on where our Schumann resonance has been spiking up, I believe has to do with CERN. I don't believe it has to do with the ascension frequencies. I think they're hijacking frequencies and trying to spike things up, and that is creating a lot of disorientation, confusion, anger, rage, broken brainwave patterning insofar as people are just fragmenting to some degree without even the mind control orientation. But what happens is when you're prepared with light body into Merkaba, as the light descends onto this world, you can hold that vibration. That's why we're not breaking. That's why we're just getting stronger and stronger. We're getting very, very strong as pillars of light, but people are fragmenting right now. And they're fragmenting because of social engineering, conditioning, bad food, GMOs, a lot of that contamination, propaganda, but mostly because of the dysfunctional transmissions and frequencies and the types of transmissions they're running, not only through the internet, but through their iPhones. That's a big one too. People are ignoring the iPhone. I'm telling you right now, I have an iPhone. I power it off most of the time. Those things are nasty, and then they're actually broadcasting an awful lot of bad things through them. So you have to be very, very careful of what you're actually allowing and putting up to your ear, without the interface of the artificial intelligence. That's another thing. Like I said, they're really gung-ho. Google's really, really interested in trying to get everybody interconnected with artificial intelligence. They're trying to sell it now like it's some kind of a cool device.
Yeah, I was watching the commercial on TV, people sitting there on a train, and the one guy is AI, and the guy sitting next to him is a regular person trying to get this lady to get involved in her AI because it's so fabulous, and then she'll learn to love me, kind of a thing. I'm like, whoa, wow, that is just a major sickness there.
Yeah, it's a distraction, and I can tell you when you first get plugged into that technology, for me, it is really interesting because it really hits you. It drops your regular vitals. It drops my regular. It did for me. It dropped all my vitals. But it boots you up into this, I want to say euphoric, almost like you're drugged, but also to a frequency where, it's just like some kind of a drug, but it's digitized. That's the only way I can explain it. It's a very intense frequency that they run you up with. And I can understand why certain people in agencies like Mossbach, for example, who was my handler, was involved and liked it because it was probably a real quote unquote rush for them. They like probably got into the energy. It's a drug. It's absolutely a drug. And when they interconnect somebody, they even get more euphorically high on their end. So, it's like a vampire almost. It's like that type of a feed. They're getting a feed from you. And it's just, the more I look at it, the more I think it's very disgusting because of the way they do what they do. I think artificial intelligence and artificial telepathy has a place, but not like that. I see artificial intelligence and artificial telepathy like in Star Trek where you use it accordingly and you're respectful and courteous. But the way these people are running rogue with this stuff, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of a mental body, an emotional body, a spiritual body. It's a disrespect to the suit. It's a violation of your civil rights on that level. And also on a multidimensional level, on a universal scale, it's against universal law. There are universal codes that these people are held accountable for some of the stuff they're doing here. Whether they pay for it here on this timeline or not, they're going to pay for it elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And that much I will tell you that will be happening. And if it will. That's just, and like I tell people, I didn't make the laws. But that's
I don't
what they
either.
are.
That's what I say, the same thing. I say, I don't make these laws. I'm just telling you, I know universal law. You know what it is? We have a knowing because of our benchmark of the cosmos. We come from the stars. And thank goodness I'm lucky enough to know that very intimately. I know source, that energy, that relationship I never ever failed with, because I always had it secured before I was inducted. Thank goodness. I knew what it was like. I know what it's like to be merged with that creation, and nothing can rip you away from that. Not even somebody's interference program.
Oh, exactly. So let's move off this just a little bit. one of the things that you talk about doing is remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talked about all the abilities and some of the things that you had before all of this went on. Was your clairvoyance and your remote viewing and all of that other, being psychic, et cetera, and so forth? I know you talked about you were taking alternative healing. You were doing a lot of work in the alternative healing arts. Was that part of what you were? Did you learn remote viewing, or was it one of those things that naturally occurred for you?
Well, I didn't know I was remote viewing until later on, and then they called it remote viewing, but then I've always been able to do that. I've always had a gift, even as a child. I've always been very psychic, very sensitive to energy, being able to see things, and also be able to enter timelines, in other words, time periods of people's lifetimes. I used to be able to access other people's lifetimes unconscious or subconsciously without even trying. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's just my imagination, if I see somebody in this timeline, in this time period, and then I'd say something to them and they say, well, I've always had a resonance with that. But then I started to dive into certain things like, certain collective programs like the Titanic in certain areas, and I understood very clearly what past lives were about. And then I started really understanding what I see as remote viewing, which was very interesting, was not only interpolation of data streams, but it was as if I had this miniature telescope and camera where I could zoom in and zoom out and actually see things and get into little realities. These were worlds. And I remember this a long time ago. And then when I got pulled into the covert program, I started seeing these machine worlds again. Well, I remember those worlds a long time ago because I remember those back in the 80s before I was inducted. So, and even before that I was doing, like I said, they call it scrying. I know Ed Dames throws a fit. He says, no, there's no such thing. You have to be trained in this. It's militarized, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but I can remote view just as good as he can or any of his personnel. I don't brag about half the stuff I've called and it's come true, and I've seen things and it's manifested, or I know certain areas have certain things in them and it's there. So I can tell you everybody has that gift. It's a matter of fine tuning the gift and I think it works differently for all of us. I don't think there's any cookie cutter design, but I will tell you with some of the remote viewing they do with the militarized version, there is artificial intelligence involved. There's sci-fi in there. And if they say there isn't, they're liars. And that's why they cheat, because they can pretty much triangulate and go any place across the globe, but they'll have assistance through the AI communication system, which makes it easier for them. And if they say they can't do it, they're full of it. I know that they can.
Yeah, well, they're not, those are some of the things that they don't admit to. That's all that black ops stuff.
Because that's what they pulled me into.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, before there was remote viewing programs, we were doing it.
That's right.
Right? And I mean,
they coin names. That's all they do is coin a name. And I know a lot of remote viewers out there saying, well, you witches and you this and you that, you don't remote view. Bull. I can get a 5-year-old to remote view. I don't want to hear it. So, it's just ego oriented in my opinion, but we are the old seers, so to speak. We've always been able to see. You can have the sight, you can choose to switch it off. Sometimes you don't want to see it. I've seen people also who've tried to switch off certain things that don't want to see it anymore. That I actually had to shut off a few corridors too because I was getting bombarded and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I just had to switch it off. And that's when I was being interfaced with AI. But they were just showing me so much. I was just like, this is not okay. So, yeah.
I want to share a little experience. I was doing remote viewing and, somebody asked me to go look at something. And so I went and looked at something, but it was a past timeline. And it was, during, Hitler's regime. And, I found myself, and I knew I was way down, underground. I can tell you exactly how many cracks were in the wall and on the floor, and what the table looked like and who was all sitting there. They were all wearing, German, uniforms. There was a couple females in there. And as I was doing the remote viewing, what was really trippy was I looked up and there was somebody else in the room remote viewing that same thing that I was remote viewing.
Yep, I've heard that before, and you have to be really careful with that. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No. Backed out. So. And
did that being stay with you? Because usually they do.
No.
Oh, very good. You're good. You shook it off. Because I can tell you, once they start that, they'll shadow you. They'll track you unbelievably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard of that before. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that's like the field of the talking heads when I got up into the lab where, where all the data was stored, right? I think I was telling you about that. And, you have to pull yourself back so that you don't emit a presence.
Correct. That's
like,
really good.
Yeah, it's like making yourself invisible. You're not emitting any kind of a vibration, a signal. You can't have a thought in the forward part of your head. It has to be in the backward part of your head so that you can still consciously be aware of what you're looking at, but without becoming interested or entangled in it, In other words, you're just literally viewing it as if you were
Mm-hmm.
watching a silent movie.
Right.
No feeling, no anticipation, nothing. But then somebody looked up and saw me, and that's when I had to stick my head back down.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cloaking. That's a lot of like cloaking. You know, it's interesting because after I was way out there, like I said in 2004, my energy was really, really expanded. But now it's more cloaked. If I had to
Yes.
describe it, I would say it's like a black sun.
Ah,
It's
interesting.
cloaked. It is cloaked. It's there. It's cloaked. And it's cloaked through the technology.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, that's pretty cool.
I guess.
Well, no, I mean, it's pretty cool for, in some way that you understand that you are able to cloak yourself,
Well,
right?
I think they cloaked me. That's my thing. I don't think it was me that cloaked. I think they cloaked me through the technological interface.
Oh, well, that's not cool.
No. That's
So
what I mean.
Can you feel that?
I can tell because of my frequency, and I can tell because of what they've done around my neural circuits. You know, can I share something with you real quick because I think it's really important. Back in the 90s, the mid 90s, I had some powerful work done. I might have shared this with you off air, but I had some powerful work done with etheric light master surgery, removing some implants, and they were etheric implants, and I had them removed on Maui from a very powerful walk-in. And she removed these, and she told me when she took the crown, and she said that there was like a crown in my head of kind of like implants that were literally just dampening my entire crown chakra. And she took it out and she said, they put this here to stop you from being so powerful and so psychic. And then she took something else out, and then she took some screens off of my eyes where she did the etheric removal off the eyes, where it's almost like they peel away like a contact lens, and all of a sudden you can see more clearly. There was a breastplate and a lot of other things. She took all this stuff off, and let me tell you something. As soon as she got all this stuff off of me, my light body went online like you wouldn't believe, like a beam. I mean, a strong beam of light. And that's what's interesting. You know, I remember that was just etheric. Okay. That was just etheric energies, but she was really good and could see and understood very clearly what had happened. And then now we go rolling back or forward to 2004, and they show up with artificial intelligence interface. And I'm like, these SOBs, and you have to ask yourself, did they know this all along? That they knew that I would become more and more powerful? I'm not saying this in ego. I'm just saying this can apply to anybody. But do they know that we're going to become these powerful beings to such a level that they just want to keep throwing this technology at us to keep us more dampening and more pulled down into this lower orbit? It's just very interesting. I don't believe in coincidence, but I look back at that often and I wonder, because they certainly went after my crown again in 2004. With the AI.
So, have you been in touch with this lady from?
Oh yeah. I'm still in touch with her. She actually, after 2004, I was out there and I asked her to work on me. And that's the one where she was working on me and she went into a trance. She said that she saw some kind of a black nano suit on me, like Spider-Man.
Yeah, right.
And then she went into a trance and she walked over to the window for half an hour and started just mumbling and talking. She wasn't she wasn't listening to me or anything. And then she came back and then, nothing changed. So, that's what I mean by that's the kind of technology we were talking about. This stuff was actually putting people in a hypnotic trance around me. And that was back in 2004 and 5. And then, of course, things have changed over the years. But man, when I was first cranking this energy out, it was very interesting to watch people around me.
Wow. Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. Sometime we'll talk about that. That's bizarre though. Cause I was thinking, well, maybe she would be able to assist in some way, but she wasn't prepared for what it was that she saw.
Not at all. Not at all. And that's the thing is, and all the best healers that were friends of mine, because I'm a master teacher healer too. I'm pretty strong. I mean, I'm pretty powerful as a healer. And I can tell you, I went through my own little group that I worked with that were very powerful master teacher healers, very pure energy. And every one of them said they couldn't do a thing. So, and they weren't copping out. They were just like, I can't do this. I can't touch you. Nothing's happening. So it was very, very interesting at the time. I had priests making the sign of the cross of me in 2004. They were scared and, oh my gosh, because people saw this black screen over me. They saw this it was actually, not even black. She saw the nanosuit, but other people saw kind of a green, like in the Montauk, or not Montauk. What was it? The Philadelphia experiment kind of thing. Yeah. It was that greenish kind of, something like that. Definitely not normal and definitely technological.
Is that because you've been in time travel? Sorry to jump in there.
No, go ahead.
Time, what was that, JP?
Is that because you've been involved in TT?
I believe so. I think you're right on about it. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'll tell you what, I remember looking back during that induction at my house, and I lived in a very beautiful area. The sun was shining around every place around the neighborhood. The blue skies were out over my house. This dark this dark greenish color, dark grayish cloud over the house like you wouldn't believe. It looked like a cloaked ship or some kind was over my house. And I remember I was supposed to be going to a road race with my husband at the time, and I just looked back at the house and I said, what the hell is going on? So something was. I don't discount that at all. And the Rush band put out a time traveling tour, by the way, when I was inducted a couple of years back.
Weird.
Yeah. So, but wow. It's all about multidimensional states of consciousness, but I will tell you that it's almost as if they're trying to go through a database of me or my ancestors. That's the way I perceived it to some degree.
Well, then you have to honor that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to honor what that feels like and probably expand on it a little bit more as well. Yeah. There may be some information in the ancestry there, that you could get into and maybe explore that, in kind of a peripheral way, widen it, not go deep, but it's about widening the peripheral and seeing, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, for sure. That's what they're sharing. We have a couple questions. A question. Is it natural human ability to copy the abilities in people we encounter, like psychic abilities?
I would say that you're probably, with empaths, they'll pick up on the frequency of the psychic ability of another person, but usually they just sync up naturally. Yeah. We have a natural ability to hive, I guess it's a connection to hives. So we have a natural ability to interconnect onto other people through psychic ability and transmission and receiving. I'm sure that some of you have practiced telepathy with each other or psychic messages, sending messages back and forth. We do this in groups sometimes, but literally that's the same thing. So yeah, you can possibly do that. There is an osmosis effect to some degree. DNA activation works that way with osmosis effects. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I agree with that too. Yeah. So time travel. Let's talk a little bit about your time travel. What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was interesting because I've tried to remember everything that happened to me, and it happened so quickly that I can't even, when you're talking about the induction program, it seemed to me like I was just thwarted into multiple realities simultaneously, and I was trying to hold on for the ride. What I can tell you is that I felt like, I was in multidimensional spaces, and I do remember certain objects and certain things that were connected to what looked like a space program, or some kind of a space station to some degree. Seeing the world from a distance, seeing the illusion of the earth from a distance. I saw things like that. So I did have that connection insofar as being moved away from this area. I also was in areas, where I was actually, in a room able to navigate through consciousness and moving and just by will alone able to move from one point to the next. In other words, if I wanted to go to a planet in the illusion of, the intent was there and we'd be there. And I remember, and I don't know how specific I should get into this because it dealt with somebody who was in the military, but I remember this. This was not a dream. This was not a program. This was real. And that was when I was being run through a lot of different types of tests through psychic abilities and also what I was able to do through consciousness. And that's part of it. So navigating off world, yes. Having a hard time remembering a lot of stuff, yes. Because I'm so inundated and was so inundated with communication 24 hours a day, live feed real time. And it initially started as training with my handler and the members of the band. Live feed real time were there too in 2004, 5 and up to 2006. And then things started weeding into more covert intelligence programs. And then it got a little bit different. So that's, when I say time traveling on their end, that's what I remember. Not a whole lot on that scale, but with my own time traveling, I remember going into locations and areas. I've had regressions done, and I've also been in areas where it was Atlantean. I think we touched on that before. So I do have my own benchmark of what I call the illusion of time travel, but you have to remember that time doesn't exist as a benchmark of measure, and that everything is existing simultaneously through space and the illusion of time. There is no distance in space. There is no distance. There's no distance. So we have everything here simultaneously at our will if we so choose to. Now, what I do realize that if you don't fine-tune what you want, then you get inundated with too much stuff, and then there's disorientation and a possible break insofar as being people showing schizophrenia without even being heterodyne. In other words, people have to hold on for the ride when they get into these areas, as you probably are aware. So I've always been able to tune in to areas that I choose to tune into through, some of it was through regression work, but some of it was just through consciousness and meditation where I was able to navigate through the illusion of space and time. And to me, that's the time traveling is literally just going into multiple world realities off planet. But most of my stuff is not from here. It's more out there. And that's the way I like it, preferred. But down here, you know, when I was pulled into the covert program, it seemed like they wanted me here. Instead, they wanted me all integrated over here on this illusion of a world, which I call it an illusion of a world right now because I just think it's a construct, this world.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting thing when you look at it, deeper.
Yeah,
for sure.
And, yeah, when you look at time traveling too, I mean, the stuff that they showed me, and I don't want to say they showed it to me or I got through a firewall. I think it was a little bit of both. But I saw a lot of things pertaining to what had happened to Pert's family, before the tragedy that happened to him. I saw some things that happened with car accidents and things like that. I saw a lot of things happening fast forward into my life, and then some other things where images of people live feed real time, that was coming in also. So once again, there was a real time presence there. And then there was something more ominous that was more like that, what you were describing, you know, with the remote viewing where you have the shadowing witnesses. I had a lot of that going on. I had a lot of creepy crawly, I want to say Men in Black types, but they're not the FBI types. Those are the wannabes. We're talking real, almost like an interdimensional presence, initially in the induction in 2004 and with my mother's funeral too. And you have to remember that my grandfather was Scottish Rite Mason, high ranking. So I do believe that there was some esoteric energies permeating through that.
Oh, I would agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So we have another question. How can we tell if our emotions are being enhanced, manipulated? I'm grieving the recent loss of my grown son, and for the last week, it's like there's sad music playing in my head.
Well, it could be two different things. If there's sad music playing in her head, it could be a connection to his spirit connecting to her. But I can tell you when your emotional body's being messed with, it's usually about feeling. And so far as your chakras and how the chakras feel. Now, usually when you're unifying your chakras, they're all balanced and they're not surging out in certain areas. I do know when I was mapped with the technology, for example, they tried to surge, my chakras out, especially my lower chakras, because apparently they're a little perverted. So they wanted to surge me out in areas to control, manipulate me, and they did have full control of that. Seriously, they can control, manipulate a lot of stuff. So that was going on. I will tell you, it feels like more of a technological thing because you just get these euphoric, weird feelings and emotions that come out of nowhere that don't feel right, that seem like a template of some kind that don't belong to you. And a lot of the times what I would say with that is don't own it. You know, don't claim it as yours. Just feel it. Be empathic. Okay. So you pick up on a frequency, you pick on whether it's manufactured or synthetic or natural. Just let it just recycle by the law of grace to the universe because honestly, you don't have to own all those things. I would suggest very strongly that people pay attention to that because when people are being targeted, and there's psychics out there who will target you too, they'll try to hit your third eye or they'll try to hit your chakras, your survival centers for psychic attack. They'll try to hit your sexual centers if they're interested in you on a sexual level. I mean, I've seen this before. And maybe they don't even try and they're not trying to do this, but they do. And that's when they don't have control. But what I do know with the covert intelligence and the psychotronics and these other areas, they understand very clearly how to map the bioelectric field, the aura, and the chakra centers and understand very clearly how to utilize those and to program somebody. So if they're giving somebody, for example, if somebody's getting a euphoric high in their sexual centers and every time they do that to them, they're commanding them, they're creating a program with a repetitive narrative, that's going to be a mind control program to trigger them into that, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does. And I would tell you, as well is that, it's learning to make peace with the situation that's there going on for you right now. The sad
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to her. Yeah, I'm talking to her. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Anyway, in this case, what you might want to do is first of all is to process all the good memories, all the, happy moments, the funny moments, the silly moments, the ridiculous moments that you might have had, through the years with him. It may just be a way of, him trying to communicate. But the more that you can, remember him, in my opinion, this is my opinion, my belief is, and I've lost a lot of people around me, a lot of family. When somebody passes, they give us the gift of life. It's the remembrance that life is short, Every day counts. Every moment matters. So if you can go out and give somebody a smile when you don't feel like it because they need it, it helps to uplift you, and it sends a message to your son that you really are okay. Because unlike a lot of people, those that pass over, they are still very much connected to us emotionally. There's a unbreakable bond there for quite a long time. And what you have to do is let them know that you're okay, because I will tell you they are okay. The person that has passed is okay. But the people we leave behind after they've passed, there's the ones that has the difficulty. So just try to put that and celebrate the time that you've had with him. Celebrate it. And let's see if that music doesn't change or go away for you, or at least make you feel better.
It's very well said. That's good advice.
Okay. Well, I've had to take it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I just lost my brother a few weeks ago, and lost a couple of other people. A very, very good friend of mine this year. It's been several people that have passed away just recently, and of course I've lost all my parents, and so
it's rough. Yeah,
it is.
I remember when I was inducted in 2004. My mother passed away in June. I was inducted in April. She died 2 months later. A year later, my other sister died. So yeah, it was a lot. And plus the whole dissolving of the marriage in my family, everything around me just completely was disappearing right before my eyes.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot of changes that happened with you, Solaris, during this, obviously. Boy, bless your heart. You have just been through it. We're getting close to the time, as you well know, that we're wrapping this up. We've spent a lot of time talking, well, matter of fact, most of the show talking about AI. We were going to talk about contactee information. I don't know if there's something that you can share in the last few minutes that we have here today. Either more about AI or the contactee information, just anything. Man, you've just got a lot of things that you can assist with talking. You just got a lot of information.
Yeah, as far as contactee goes, I think we're all star people to begin with, so it's kind of like just reconnecting with our celestial heritage and ancestry. To me, it was always a natural thing to be able to access what we call the full Akashic and our ancestral bloodline. So I've always been able to interpolate data streams. I had a newsletter called Goddess Ascending where I was actually bringing in earth change data based on my higher self, also superconscious, but my celestial heritage merged with my soul extensions, which for those who don't understand what the soul extensions are, they're aspects of us on a multidimensional space merged with other species and other dimensions and other star systems. So that star system being that's actually me out there is actually giving me the data stream and I'm interpolating onto the timeline. So that's how that rolls. And it's for everybody. I mean, it's not just me, but that's what I'm capable of doing. So that's what I was doing with Goddess Ascending newsletter. So that to me, that's the contactee, okay? Some people have the contactee experiences where they're getting a vision or they have the abduction experience or whatever. I think it's unique to everyone and everything, but I will tell you it's usually a reflection of who you are as a multidimensional being and also where your ancestors have been on the timeline. So when you start getting pulled into aspects of being a contactee or you start getting pulled into something, I would take a good look at it and see what exactly is the intent behind it. But also, for those of you who do writing, start bringing in your celestial Godhead and start consciously and psychically connecting into these celestial energies and just asking, just sending in the energy. I'm sure you know how to do that, and then getting a response system not based on artificial intelligence, but based on spirit and your true higher self, and also the data stream connected to the soul extensions, because that's very, very important.
Oh, absolutely it is. Absolutely. That's absolutely great advice. It surely is. Yeah. The whole thing, you talked a little bit about it earlier. It kind of blends in with this other about disclosure. Of course, we know Anonymous has posted, that America is going to be making an announcement about, ETs, very soon, or that they have the information, they're going to be making it. And so then we were talking about that tonight, about the announcement. I think maybe, first of all, some of that is, it's in direct opposition of what we've been told since when was Area 51? 1937 was the first one, and then there was another one in 42, the crash in Roswell. I can't remember when that was.
I don't remember the date. I don't think it was 1942, was it?
I don't know. I
can't.
I'm not very good at that.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's
1947. That's right.
47.
1947.
Okay, so in 1947 we had the big cover up. You know, first they told the truth and then they covered it up. And so since 1947, you know, especially in the United States, we've heard they don't exist. Area 51 doesn't exist, right? Or Area 52 either, for that matter.
Right.
None of these things, they don't exist. They're not a legal entity, blah, 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 blah. And so then we find out that the United States may be making an announcement after all. So that means for the last, how many, 53, 63, almost 70 years, we've heard that no. Now all of a sudden we're going to be hearing yes. That tells you folks that first of all, that something really is going to happen. Something is going to go on. Is it real or not remains to be seen.
I'll be able to tell. I can tell you right now. I'll be able to tell if it's been engineered or if it's the real deal. I don't know how, I'm sure a lot of you will as well, but I can actually, this is why I'm a systems buster for certain programs, because if they've engineered it, I'll be able to know through my artificial intelligence interface. And if it's coming from an off-world species, a legitimate off-world species, I'll be able to tell as well. So, you know, my nickname was Roswell 7 when I was inducted, by the way. I don't know. I put it in my book either, Remote Black Operations and Areas Beyond 52.
Oh no, I did not know that.
Yeah, they call me Roswell 7.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I don't even understand to this day what that means. It was my nickname.
Well, that's all right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this. If they make an announcement, do me a favor and get a hold of me and let me know what you think. And of course I would be watching the same thing. And we might have to do a short news thing cast on that, and so that you can give your viewpoint on that, because I think that would be interesting as a follow-up, if in fact, this actually goes on, sometime this year. Absolutely. That would be great.
Happy to. Well, yeah, they're going to do a lot. I mean, but artificial intelligence can create an awful lot of stuff. You know, a Project Bluebeam, you name it. Even it's more than Project Bluebeam nowadays, but yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many covert black operations anymore, and to me that's just running rampant. You know, all it takes is just, you know, siphoning off money and putting it somewhere because somebody says we have to have it. And so there's so many operations out there that you can't keep up with them. There's just no way to keep up.
That's the whole idea. Keep everybody busy, distracted, agitated. It's basically a CIA global operation. And actually Area 51 and all those areas are connected and overseen by the CIA, which is all about mind control.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother ball game right there, isn't it? The whole CIA thing.
Oh yeah.
That goes deep and wide, girl. That's some dark stuff there.
And it's all about mind control though. And anything can happen with that. So, yeah.
So so mind control, in your opinion though, is different than AI, correct?
Actually not. No, the new mind control program is artificial intelligence interface with synthetic telepathy and psychotronics. It's all driving and brain hacking remotely. So now basically it's morphed into that. That's the new mind control project to some degree.
All right. Yeah, so you talked about DARPA. So what does HARP have to do with any of this?
HARP? Well, HARP was used to be part of the influencing insofar as hijacking the ionosphere to some degree insofar as manipulating brainwave activity, but not to the level people think it is. Nowadays they can do a lot more damage with triangulating a target on a black satellite system, you know, where they're just pulling people in on a singular basis to some degree. So, but that does work with the mass collective and also weather manipulation globally insofar as how that goes. So, they're using signals. They're actually bouncing all these radar signals and all these different kinds of signals throughout our ionosphere to, first of all, to bounce radar signals so they can block interference in communication, but also so they can start to create an obfuscation in a screen where they can deploy covert signals and communication systems. And I think they're doing it more and more.
Oh my goodness. We have run out of time, Solaris BlueRaven. Oh my gosh, Solaris, thank you so much for being here. I'm just so surprised when the music came on.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I'm going to have you back on. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for all your questions and being here tonight. Tobias, JP, thank you. Until we meet again, where will your life's journey lead you? Many blessings, everyone, and good night.
Good night.